rebels in Yemen. That was back in March. You may remember that these messages were revealed after Atlantic reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally added to this Signal group chat. And some of these messages are so specific, one of them even saying from Hegseth, quote, "This is the exact time the bombs will drop." So the Inspector General has been investigating Hegseth's use of Signal for several months now, since April. And we're now finding that he came to the same conclusion that many of the critics, current and former U.S. officials did at the time, that Hegseth should not have been using Signal to communicate this sensitive information to other Trump officials, and that he could, the potential consequences of that could have been dire. The IG also concluded, too, that there was no documentation, as far as they could find, that Hegseth made a choice to declassify this information before sending it to the Signal group chat. Now, that's important because we know that the information itself was from a document that was marked classified at the time, and the Inspector General was looking at, among other things, whether or not Hegseth did appropriately declassify it before disseminating it. And one other interesting note, too, Dana, is that Hegseth apparently did not sit for an interview with the Inspector General, resisted doing so, instead provided his responses to their questions in writing. So this is the most fulsome picture that we're getting of this report that's coming from an independent watchdog, one that has been really meticulous in reviewing the facts, acquiring documentation related to Hegseth's use of Signal, and is now offering its assessment that really aligns with what we've been talking about for months now.
Wow. I mean, this is a big deal. Zach, thank you so much, and to Jake as well for breaking this news. I really appreciate it. And I just want to underscore that last thing that Zach said, Kristen Holmes, which is that this is not a bipartisan congressional report, which would also be important, but this is a report from an independent watchdog, the Inspector General, that is supposed to be in every major agency. This one is in his agency, an important one, the Pentagon. And this is what they have concluded, that the Defense Secretary risked compromising sensitive military information, which could have endangered American troops and mission objectives when he used Signal in March of this year.
Yeah, and that's actually what we'd heard, not just from critics, but from people who are out there on the front lines and their families, that the biggest concern about this was that they were putting their lives in danger by communicating. And the idea that the Secretary of Defense wouldn't understand that communicating in this way could actually harm our troops on the ground. Now, I will say, we continue to have this narrative, and we've had it 6 times maybe since Hegseth was sworn in, of, he was nearly fired, but he kept his job. And I think this is going to, again, lead to this whole narrative as to whether or not Hegseth stays as the head of the Secretary of Defense. But we always have to remind, our viewers how much the Trump administration, how much the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, how much President Trump and his top advisors all put in to getting Hegseth confirmed.
A lot of capital.
A lot of political capital, a lot of personal capital. And so they really, they're going to come together at some point and make a decision, but that's always going to be on the back of all of their minds.
And I want to, we just had up on the screen, but I want to just put it back up if we can, as you come in, Jeff, the actual chat, or at least part of the chat, that this Inspector General report is referring to, and you see the part that is highlighted where he's specifically talking about the specifics on the strike that was pending.
Right. I mean, this is when the first bombs will drop. It doesn't get any clearer than that. I mean, that requires no explanation. No amount of spin is able to sort of explain that. But interesting, the Inspector General's report, the Inspector General of the Pentagon was fired. He was one of the many Inspector Generals who were fired. So this was conducted by the Inspector General's office, I believe. I do not believe that there's been a new one appointed. We'll have to check on that. But so that's extraordinary in of itself. But to your point, Kristen, he expended so much capital. It was a tie vote that J.D. Vance had to break to confirm the defense secretary. So many people close to the White House who want the White House to do well are saying that they believe that Pete Hegseth will stay on until there is a few cabinet members who leave. So he will not be the only one to leave. There may be a reshuffling, which happens, as we've reported, and we've seen in every administration. Some cabinet members are replaced as the administration moves along. We'll see if that happens here, but he has a lot of pressure coming on him from his comments yesterday about Venezuela on top of this.
I was going to say, this is not happening in a vacuum.
Right.
I'm also glad you pointed out the Inspector General's office, because we were talking as we were getting this news.
It's not just one person. I mean, they're actually quite large offices.
Yeah, exactly. About the actual Inspector General at the Pentagon and other places and other agencies, they have been let go. But the office does still exist. The fact that this is not happening in a vacuum, that it is happening as Mr. Hegseth is very much under pressure and being questioned by his fellow Republicans, not about this anymore, but on the strikes against these boats coming out of Venezuela.
Right, and Kristen's point in saying that the administration expended so much capital is a reminder that Pete Hegseth came into his job with not a lot of goodwill among Republicans in Congress because that confirmation vote was so narrow. And now on the separate issue, on the strikes and what happened, you're hearing really intense scrutiny from bipartisan leaders of these key congressional committees. And I wanted to read this quote from Senator Roger Wicker, who's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And on the Venezuela issue, he says these are serious charges, and that's the reason we're going to have special oversight. I mean, and Roger Wicker, I mean, he's not like a Mitt Romney, Tom Tillis type. Like, he is conservative. He doesn't like to kind of buck the party if he doesn't have to. So the fact that he's sounding this really stern warning about what the committees will do shows that Pete Hegseth is under serious scrutiny by Republicans in Congress.
Yeah, and the thing that also strikes me from Zach's reporting is the point that he made that Hegseth didn't sit for an interview, that he only submitted questions in writing. Here on these boat strikes, it's going to be a big question. Right. What happened exactly when? And already we see that his own version of this has shifted a couple of times, and it's clarified maybe or changed, depends on who you ask about it. But if this